Astaghfirullah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir la'inir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Bari'il khalaiqi ajma'in. Ba'ithil anbiya'i wal mursaleen. ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرفهم أجمعين حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآله وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من يومنا هذا إلى قيام يوم الدين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم إن الحسين مصباح الهدى وسفينة النجاة صلوات محمد وعلى اللهم صل على Dear brothers and sisters, Mu'mineen and Mu'minat, we are on our journey. We are on our journey towards the light that we see emanating from Karbala. And our journey isn't a physical journey. Our journey is primarily a spiritual journey. We are moving forward night after night, stage after stage, manzil after manzil. Please recite a salawat by Muhammad wa alihi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa alihi. We are moving forward night after night, stage after stage, manzil after manzil, getting closer and closer to our destination. Many of us have been blessed and fortunate to make the physical journey as well to Karbala. And many of us have yet to receive this tawfiq. Inshallah, it is hoped and prayed through the barakat of these important nights and through the azadari and through the mourning ceremonies and commemoration of mourning that we are all participating in, that each and every one of us, those who have traveled to Karbala physically and those who haven't, inshallah, all of us get the opportunity to do so again and again and again. And not just Karbala, all the holy sites of pilgrimage, of all the Masumeen, Hajj, Umrah, all of these opportunities, inshallah. Inshallah, by ourselves, with our families, along with other members of the community, inshallah. Whenever we go on a physical journey to Karbala, you know that there are certain adab that have to be observed. We are required to dress in a certain way. Those who go to Karbala frequently dress in a different way. They don't dress the way they do while they are here at home, at their jobs, etc. We are advised to eat simple food. Eat less. Rather than focus on shopping and physical pleasures, we are asked to focus on prayer and ziyarat during these trips. And of course, these adab are important. These adab that pertain to the physical journey to Karbala. And when the journey is of a spiritual nature, of course, the adab have to be commensurate with the spiritual journey. One of the most important adab of a spiritual journey towards Karbala pertain to our sense of gratitude and humility at being able to participate in gatherings such as this gathering tonight. It is an immense privilege that has been accorded to each and every one of us to be able to participate in this gathering and other such gatherings. And therefore demands of us to this Husainiya and Imam Barga. We should leave all our false pride and our inflated sense of self-importance outside. I would say even further outside compared to where we've left our shoes, even further away from there. That's where we need to leave this false pride and enter here. When we are here, I shouldn't think of myself as I am Maulana so and so. I hold this position in so and such corporation. I belong to this family. I belong to that background. Nothing of the sort. All these get left behind, and we enter here simply as mourners of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. And when this happens, then nothing that we do is too small for us. Nothing that we do is too small for us. Then we are not wondering about, am I sitting at the front or am I sitting at the back? Have I been served tea or not, for example? In fact, I am the one who's eager to serve tea to the other mourners who have arrived here. I stay in the holy city of Qom in Iran, which, as you know, is the primary center of Islamic learning in the world today. And I observed there among the senior scholars, some of them very famous names, some of them that you've heard as well, their names as well. I've seen them when they hold these morning ceremonies, they stand in utter humility at the door, welcoming each and every mourner into the Husainiya. I have sometimes seen them serving tea to the mourners that have arrived. And if their students allow them to, they would even go so as far as to arrange the footwear, the shoes and the slippers of the mourners that are in disarray outside the door. It's just that their students don't allow them to do that. An important adab among the adab of this spiritual journey is humility and gratitude at being able to participate. This is a gathering that has been arranged by Imam Hussain himself. And therefore, it requires us to participate in utter humility. Dear brothers and sisters, we've spoken about a journey that we are on, a journey from light, from darkness to light, a journey from constriction to freedom. We spoke about this journey last night. It's a journey that we are invited to. It's a journey that we must choose to set off on. But dear brothers and sisters, considering the importance of this journey, considering the high stakes that are involved, the risks that are involved, the fact that there is no second chance, we only live once. After that, after this life, there is only judgment. Considering that there is no second chance, considering that the stakes are very high, it is a journey that cannot be undertaken without guidance. It's just simply too important. It cannot be undertaken without guidance. It is such an important journey. If someone says that this is the most important journey that I will undertake in my life, he hasn't yet got it right. This journey isn't the most important journey in our lives. This journey is our life. It is our life. And therefore, it demands the attention that it requires, it demands and requires guidance. It demands and requires guidance. And we spoke of guidance last night. We spoke of guidance last night. We spoke of how in the system of guidance that has been devised for this journey, for our lives, we saw that guidance isn't simply limited to explaining things. The system of guidance, we spoke of this last night, is fundamentally the system of imamat. And in the system of guidance called the system of imamat, guidance isn't limited to simply demonstrating things with strong proofs, providing arguments, debating. Yes, these are all part of the system of imamat, but it's not limited to just this. In the system of imamat, it is the imam himself who is the paramount and primary proof. He provides proof, but he himself is the biggest and the most important proof in this maktab and in this school of thought. He doesn't just tell us what we need to do. He doesn't just explain what's required to be done. In the system of guidance called imamat, the guide, the hadi, the murshid, the imam leads by example. Leads by example. Leads by sacrifice. If he demands anything of his followers, he has already performed the same thing several degrees higher than what is demanded of his followers. Leads by example. In this system of guidance, the system of imamat, the imam doesn't simply address us and speak to our intellect, providing rational proof. The leader, the imam, the wali goes on to evoke an intense love and passion in the hearts of those who are being guided. An intense passion and intense obedience that seems to consume their entire existence. The followers of the imam, they appear to some of the other worldly people as crazy people. That's because of the passion and the obedience that seems to consume their entire existence. Let me just give you an example. In the early days of Islamic history, there have been many trials and tribulations for the ummah, particularly for the followers of the Ahl Bayt. One of the biggest catastrophes that the ummah and the followers of the Ahl Bayt were afflicted with in the first century of Hijri was during the time of our fourth Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. At that time, a large part of the Muslim world, well, you know, it was the Bani Umayyah that used to rule, the successors of Yazid. But a large part of rule had been handed over to a particularly gruesome and bloodthirsty personality called Hajjaj. Hajjaj bin Yusuf al-Thaqafi. Hajjaj died in the year 95 after Hijrah, which is approximately 34 years or so after the events of Karbala. He ruled over Hijaz and Iraq. If you want to see what he has been up to, let me just list a few things. He is a person who set fire to the Holy Kaaba. He is the person who attacked the Holy Kaaba with stone projectiles and missiles, causing immense damage to the structure. He is a person about whom Mas'udi, a famous historian of the early centuries, who is well regarded both by the Shia and the Sunni, Mas'udi, in his famous work of history, Muruj al-Dhahab, writes that he had killed 120,000 Muslims through orders of execution alone. This is in addition to those who died as a result of the wars and battles that he gave the order of executing 120,000 Muslims over a 20-year period of reign of terror. He was a person, this again, Mas'udi has recorded this, that when his filthy worldly life came to an end, it was recorded that there were 50,000 men in his prisons and 30,000 women. And of these 80,000 prisoners, 16,000 of them were not allowed to wear any clothing. Hajjaj, we're speaking about the intense obedience and passion that this system of guidance evokes in its followers. Hajjaj was, of course, he was an inveterate enemy of the Shia of that time. He would hunt them down. And he felt immense pleasure in martyring them. And here we have, among many stories related to the defiance of the Shia in front of Hajjaj, we have the famous personality of Hazrat Syed bin Jubair, one of the companions of our fourth Imam. Syed bin Jubair. Syed bin Jubair is captured by Hajjaj, and Hajjaj declares that I am going to now execute you. But I want to have some fun. Why don't you tell me how you want me to execute you? Why don't you tell me how you want me to execute you? Syed bin Jubair laughingly, mockingly says, it's up to you. Kill me any way that you wish. But know this, that on the day of judgment, the same punishment will be inflicted upon you several times over. To say this in the face of Hajjaj in that court requires immense courage. Immense courage. Hajjaj sends him out and he is beheaded outside the court. But before he is beheaded, Hazrat Syed bin Jubair, he prays to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he says that, oh Allah, punish Hajjaj and do not let him kill anyone after me. And Mas'udi goes on to record that just a few days after that, Hajjaj was afflicted by a strange disease. Every time he tried to sleep, he found himself choking. Within a few days, he had turned mad. And he could be so seen roaming in his palace saying, what has this Syed bin Jubair done with me? Every time I try to sleep, he comes and starts to choke me. And this is how he died. This immense obedience, The Imam, in fact, in this system of Imamat, develops the faculties, all the faculties of his followers. The intellectual ability of his followers, the emotional abilities of his followers, the spiritual power and ability of his followers, their social abilities. There is complete, all-round perfect development because there is complete and all-round perfect guidance in this system of guidance that we call Imamat. And which is why, dear brothers and sisters, which is why we say that the system of Imamat is in fact more important than the system of Nabuwat. Please pay attention. I want to get this point across without any misunderstanding and confusion. The system of Imamat is more important for our guidance than the system of Nabuwat. Now you know that one of the misunderstandings about the Shia Sometimes these are genuine misunderstandings. Sometimes these are deliberate lies and fabrications and deliberate misunderstandings. But one of the misunderstandings, whether genuine, innocent, or deliberate, about the Shia is that it is said about the Shia that the Shia are disrespectful. Astajiru billah. I seek refuge in Allah. That the Shia are disrespectful towards the holy messenger Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Salli alayhi. It is said that they venerate and respect Imam Ali more than they venerate and respect the holy messenger. And you can see their preachers saying things like this, that the imamat is more important than nabuwat. What more proof do you want? They're saying it themselves. So allow me to clarify this and to clarify any misunderstanding in this regard. Dear brothers and sisters, please pay attention to what the Shia Maktab believes. It is imamat which is superior to nubuwat. The claim being made here isn't that Imam Ali is superior to Rasulullah. How does this work? We are talking about the position, the status, the responsibility of imamat when compared with the position, the status, the responsibility of nubuwat. We are not speaking about two individuals here. We are talking about two roles here. The role of imamat is more important and superior to the role of nubuwat. So how does this work? Doesn't this still mean that that in our view, Imam Ali alayhi salam is superior to Rasulullah? Not at all. Not at all. Because the fact of the matter, dear brothers and sisters, is that many of the Anbiya, perhaps all of them, but certainly many of the Anbiya, even though we do not address them with the term Imam, they were performing the role of imamat as well. When we speak of Hazrat Ibrahim, when we spoke of him last night, Hazrat Ibrahim, when we speak of him, Hazrat Ibrahim has been directly called an imam in the words of the Quran. So there is no doubt about that. And certainly about the other ulul azm prophets such as Hazrat Musa, Hazrat Isa, and many others. And when it comes to the holy messenger himself, in addition to being the most superior and the most elevated of all the Anbiya and messengers, he was an imam as well. He was an imam as well up until the time that he was in this world. He was the imam. And we have ahadith in this regard, very, very direct about it. So while it is not common among us to refer to the holy messenger as the imam or as an imam, this is simply a convention that has developed among us. We refer to him as Nabi, as Rasul, and we refer to his successors as Imam, as A'imma. But this doesn't mean that when we analyze it and in our belief system, the holy messenger wasn't an imam. He was the imam of his time as well. He was the imam of his time. All the conditions and all the specifications associated with the system of imamat in his time were found in him. If imamat means simply successor to the Nabi, if that's how we translate imamat, then of course he wasn't an imam. But as I've been trying to explain over the last couple of lectures, imamat is the central system of guidance of Allah. And the center of this system is somebody who is called the Imam, whether it is common to refer to him as the Imam in our day-to-day lives or not. He is the Imam. And therefore, I hope this is clear. And if there are still any questions about this after the majlis, we can discuss about it. So the system of imamat is more important than the system of nubuwwat, because it is in the system of imamat that guidance reaches its peak. It's not simply about arguments and presenting proof. It is being the proof. It is about leading by example. It is about energizing, motivating, creating immense passion and love and obedience in the hearts of followers. And when it comes to the system of Imamat, we've seen this. We've been looking at the system of the paradigm of Karbala. And we've seen that in the system of guidance called Imamat, the paradigm of Karbala is a turning point. The paradigm of Karbala is a turning point. I began my majlis today and last night by narrating this famous hadith. Innal Hussein misbahul huda wa safinatun najat. Verily, certainly, Hussein is the lamp of guidance. Misbahul huda, lamp of guidance. What does a lamp do? A lamp does away with the darkness. A lamp shows us things as they are clearly. A lamp allows us to see things clearly and therefore make the right choice and right decision. If there is a lamp somewhere, if there is no lamp somewhere, we are likely to stumble and fall and hurt ourselves. But if there is a lamp, we can take care of things. But this hadith doesn't end here. If it were to end here, perhaps some of us may misunderstand the role of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in the system of Imamat. And perhaps some of us may struggle to understand how Imam Hussein can be such an important turning point in the system of Imamat. Because a lamp ultimately shows us certain things. Doing everything is up to us. A lamp clarifies things. And this is perhaps why the second part of the hadith plays such an important role. وَالسَّفِينَةُ najat. A safina, dear brothers and sisters, in Arabic means ship, ark. And that's why this part of the hadith is translated as Safinatun Najat, means the ark of salvation. The ark of salvation. What does an ark do? Does an ark show us things? A ship show us things? No. Once we get onto this ark, it leads us to our destination. It leads us to our destination. Imamat has this feature and this quality that if we can become a part of this system, it's not just a system that teaches us what to do. It holds our hand, energizes us, motivates us, and takes us where we need to go. It takes us where we need to go, dear brothers and sisters. So, dear brothers and sisters, we are talking about Imamat here, and the Karbala paradigm having a central role to play in it, having a central role to play in this system of guidance. And these important nights and days that we are living through at this point in time, they are extremely important in that they can help us build our connection, further strengthen our connection with this system of guidance. Please recite a salawat that Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali. Now this remarkable system called Imamat, this remarkable system of guidance called the system of Imamat, it has a few remarkable features. And we're just probably going to look at one or two of them tonight. Dear brothers and sisters, one of the truly remarkable aspects of this system of guidance called Imamat is that it is always on. It is always on. I'll explain further what I mean. There is no sleep mode, there is no hibernation mode for this system of Imamat. It is always working. The situation may change from place to place, era to era, time to time, from society to society. The requirements of what is needed to guide a society may change and alter. But the system of Imamat is always doing its job. It's always flexible. It's able to adapt to circumstances. And it is able to provide guidance in the form that's needed, at the time that's needed, at the place that it's needed. Let me explain. When, back in 60 Hijri, 1400 years ago, when it was demanded of Imam Hussein that he should pledge allegiance to Yazid. We all know he rejected it. And he declared that I am going to leave Medina in defiance and rejection. Open defiance. He didn't leave in a hurry. He announced it. He took his time and then left. So it wasn't a case of escaping from any kind of pressure. It was open defiance. It was throwing down the gauntlet, challenging the authorities of that time. When he did that, a lot of people came to meet him, people in Medina. Some people came to dissuade him, advise him. Some people came to ask him, can I also join you? Can we join you as well? A lot of people came and met him. One of the important personalities that came to meet him at that time was a mu'min, an important figure called Muhammad ibn Hanafiya. Muhammad ibn Hanafiya. He was one of the sons of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And therefore, he was Imam Hussein's brother, but half brother, because of the difference. They had different mothers. So Hazrat Muhammad Hanafiya, he arrives and meets Imam Hussein and offers him some suggestions. And he suggests to him that he suggests a few places that he could go to because he's leaving now. By way of destination, he suggests maybe you should go to Makkah, which is where Imam Hussein finally went. But he also suggested a few other places, Yemen, some of the mountains of Yemen, etc. Alhamdulillah, Yemen these days is playing a very positive role, and we hope that it continues to play a positive role, inshallah. So he suggests a few places that he could travel to. Imam Hussein thanks him, embraces him, thanks him, and tells him that, thank you for your advice. I am going to see where I need to go, but I can assure you of one thing, that even if there is not a single spot left on the earth where I can go to and escape the authority or be out of the authority of Yazid, and I am being forced to pledge allegiance, I can assure you that I will not pledge allegiance to Yazid. And then he leaves a note. He leaves a written note with him. Obviously, he is leaving a note with Muhammad Hanafiya. It's not meant for Muhammad Hanafiya because he can just tell him what he wants to tell him. It's meant for you and me. That's why he writes this and leaves it with him. He writes a note there in which he explains in very clear words why he is openly defining the ruler of the time. He says, these are famous words, you've heard them before. He says, Inni lam akhruj asharan wala batara. I'm not setting off from Medina due to a lust and greed for power and authority. Wala mufsidan wala zalima. I'm not doing this. I'm not taking this bold step to seek and spread corruption in the earth, to spread disorder and disarray. I'm not doing this to oppress anybody. So then why am I doing this? He's written it there in that note. He says, Innama kharajtu li talabil islah fi ummati jaddi. There is only and only one reason why I am taking this step. And that is because I seek reform in my grandfather's ummah. I seek to reform them. I seek reform in them. I seek to save them. That's why I'm doing this. Please pay attention. Please pay attention. What is happening? Look at the context. Imam Hussein, you are taking this bold, and some at that time said, foolhardy and suicidal step for your grandfather's ummah. Which ummah? Isn't this the same ummah which has been cursing your father Imam Ali for the last 20 years? for a 20-year period. At that time, 20 years. After this, it carried on for a few more decades. For decades. And by that time, 20 years had already passed. For the last 20 years, by the order of the Khalifa in Damascus, not a single Salatul Jum'ah, Friday prayer, could be held in any city, town or village, in any corner of the Muslim world, except that the Khatib, the Imam, should include in his speech and khutbah curses and la'nat by Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salatu. Please recite a salawat by his name. Allahumma salli ala. Imam Hussain, you're seeking reform for this ummah, which has been engaged in this for the last 20 years. This ummah, which has for the last 20 years, since the soul of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, harassed you and your family and your followers, massacred your family members and your followers. This ummah, you're seeking Islah for them. You're taking this bold step for them. This ummah, which when it was announced a few years ago, some time ago, that Yazid is going to be the successor of his father, everybody knew what Yazid was like, is like, but nobody said anything. And now that he has become the ruler, still nobody has said anything. This ummah, you're taking the ladies of your house, you're taking the children of your house with you. لِطَلَبِ الْإِصْلَاحِ فِي أُمَّةِ جَدِّ. This ummah. Yes, that's what I said. The remarkable things about the system of imamat. It is a system of guidance that is always running and on. The circumstances of that time demand that guidance should be offered in this new format. Imam Hussain alayhi salam has been Imam for 10 years before he leaves Medina. He has already been Imam for the last 10 years. But at that time, we do not see open defiance. We see him avoiding friction and conflict with the ruler of the time, and concentrating and focusing on developing a special cadre, a special cadre of his followers, a special group of his Shia. But once circumstances change, the strategies of the system of Imamat change as well. And now the Imam sets out to put his life and the lives of his most beloved family members and followers at risk, so that the Ummah who has been ungrateful can be guided. Dear brothers and sisters, we spoke a few nights ago about the purpose of these gatherings. And it was said from this mimbar that whatever was the purpose of Imam Hussain in Karbala, only that and only that alone can be the purpose of these gatherings. Imam Hussain alayhi salam started his movement, started his revolution, seeking Islah in the Ummah. And we here today, 1400 years later, are continuing the mission and movement that he began. Fundamentally, we are seeking Islah in the Ummah. And therefore, our commemoration, our azadari is always open to others. It is always open to others. We always seek to attract and invite other people to these gatherings. We seek to engage with them because we are continuing a mission that began 1400 years ago through Imam Hussain. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Labbaik ya Hussain, labbaik Hussain. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajjal faraja. We are outward looking. We are always inviting. We are always engaging. We are concerned. And if we find that at certain times, in certain corners of our community, this orientation doesn't exist, then we should realize that something is wrong. We have temporarily, kind of lost our connection with Karbala. It isn't really healthy the way it should be. The healthier our connection is with Karbala, the more open, inviting our religious gatherings will be. And if Islah-e-Ummat, reform of the Ummat is what our mission is, because that is what Imam Hussein's mission was, then of course we realize it's pretty obvious that any effort of Islah has to begin with ourselves. We cannot hope to reform others if we are saddled by enormous weaknesses ourselves. Islah begins with ourselves. I, as a follower of this movement, more than anything else and before anything else, have to try to identify and remove my weaknesses of different kinds. Some of us, our weaknesses are a lack of sufficient understanding and knowledge about Islam. It's a major weakness. How can we invite people towards the light and guidance of Islam if we do not have sufficient understanding and knowledge about it? Sometimes our weaknesses lie in our akhlaq. Sometimes we have problems. We have, for example, some of us are afflicted by greed, an enormous desire to acquire certain objects. Some of us are eager and hungry for fame. It's a weakness among us. Some of us get angry very quickly. It's a major weakness. Some of us are very pleasant when we are meeting with other mu'mineen, but we are very unpleasant with our own family members. The other members of our household, our children, etc., they are terrified of us. It's a weakness. Islah begins with ourselves. It is only to the extent that we have reformed ourselves that we can hope to reform the Ummah and the world at large. And this, for us, those who seek to be a part of the system of Imamah, those who seek to operate within the paradigm of Karbala, of Husainiyat, this is not an option for us. This is not an option for us. This is a duty that each and every one of us must try to fulfill. Self-reform and Islah as a stepping stone towards Islah of the Ummah and the world at large. Dear brothers and sisters, let's take our journey to Karbala forward from here. Let's take our journey forward. When news of Hazrat Muslim's Shahada reached Imam Hussain, Imam Hussain at that point was heading from Makkah towards Kufa. When this news reached him, historians write that he was at a place called Zobala. It is in northern Najd, the country that is today called Saudi Arabia, in the northern part of that. Some days away from Kufa. That's when he hears of this. And of course, news of the Shahada of Muslim bin Aqil is news of the treachery of the people of Kufa. But despite that, we see that Imam Hussain continues his journey towards Kufa. Why does he do that? It seems that if we were to place ourselves in his position, we would come to the same conclusion. Where else can he possibly go? Medina? Out of the question. He has left Makkah without completing Hajj because he knows for sure that there is an extensive plan to assassinate him in Makkah. He is heading towards Kufa. Muslim has been killed. And therefore Kufa isn't the Kufa that he was told it was. But at the end of the day, it is still Kufa. Among all the Muslim lands of that time, which are all afflicted by a severe disease of weakness of faith, the Ummah, we've seen what the condition of the Ummah was at that time. Kufa was, relatively speaking, a slightly brighter spot. if Muslim had been killed, for the last 2 months, he had been celebrated and supported there as well. And at the time of the Hukumat of Imam Ali, Kufa was his base and center of power. There were many people who lived in Kufa, even at that time, who were famous for being Shia. They were known by this name at that time. By way of an historical aside, let me just add that up to that point, the Ummah had not yet been divided into separate communities. For example, as we see today, that the Shia, the Sunni, and among the Sunni, many other sects as well, they have their separate mosques, separate ways of doing things, separate ulama. This level of division happened in the following centuries. At that point, Shia were known as individuals. That person is a Shia. And this was because of the characteristics that he displayed, not because of the tribe or family that he was born into. You became Shia by choice and action at that time. Anyway, so this is still a place where there are Shia, and therefore Imam Hussain continues his journey towards Kufa. As he's continuing to move towards Kufa, the commander and the governor of Kufa, the new governor of Kufa who has come and captured Kufa, and he is the one who's responsible for creating the conditions that lead to the martyrdom of Hazrat Muslim, Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad. Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad sends a messenger galloping towards the city of Al-Qadisiyah. Al-Qadisiyah. It is approximately 90 kilometers to the west or southwest of present-day Kufa in Iraq. He sends a messenger, a fast messenger to Al-Qadisiyah, asking the military commander of Al-Qadisiyah to go on a special mission. What is the mission? He orders this military commander, who is known for his exceptional talent and abilities, to go and head towards Hussain ibn Ali and to find him on the path, to stop him before he reaches Kufa, to arrest him and bring him to Kufa in custody. This messenger reaches Al-Qadisiyah. Upon receiving this message, this commander does exactly what was expected of him. He takes his soldiers and he sets off at full speed, without any halt or break, towards the direction of the road that comes from Makkah to Kufa. And after traveling for, 2 days, 3 days, whatever, at great speed at that time, this group coming from Qadisiyah encounters the caravan of Hussain ibn Ali. And dear brothers and sisters, this is how Hurr ibn Yazid and Hussain ibn Ali meet for the first time in their lives. This commander is Hurr. Well known all around Iraq, all over Iraq, for his exceptional talent and for his military prowess. This is their first meeting. It doesn't start very well. How does this go? What happens? The women and children of Imam Hussein's caravan are terrified by this army. Clanging shields and swords, neighing horses, kicking up this big cloud of dust, shrieking sounds. They are terrified. And Imam Hussain orders the ladies of his house to calm the children and wait and see who these are and what they have to say. When the army reaches in front, when Hurr and his commanders and his soldiers, they reach this caravan, what does Imam Hussain see? It's a large army. It's well equipped. It is obviously terrifying. But at the same time, it is exhausted. They have been marching continuously. Perhaps they've been avoiding the normal routes, coming straight through the desert, avoiding the oases where they could rest and water themselves and their horses. As a result, they are thirsty. Imam Hussain sees this. And before having any discussion, he orders Hazrat Abbas and the other youth of his caravan to offer water to the army. And they do so. They're carrying water. A caravan in those days used to carry large water skins and enormous quantities of water. They water the army. They water not just the soldiers of this army, dear mourners, but they water the horses as well. Allahu Akbar. Once this has happened and the army has refreshed and recovered, it becomes time for Salatul Zohar, the Zohar prayer. A muazzin calls out the adhan. A muazzin calls out the azan, and Hur addresses Imam Hussein and says, we are about to pray. We are about to pray. Would you like to join us? Imam Hussein agrees. And he is led right up to the front to lead this army in prayer. Imam Hussein leads this army in prayer. And after prayer is over, Imam Hussein gets onto his horse and calls out to his caravan to continue their journey towards Karbala. At this point, Hur comes and stands in front of Imam Hussein's horse. Imam Hussein asks him, what are you doing, Hur? Hur says, I can't let you go. He says, what do you mean you can't let me go? I have orders to stop you from going. Imam Hussein says, and what if I don't follow your orders? Hazrat Hur places a hand on the stirrup of the horse and says, Imam Hussein, I'm sorry, but I have my orders. When he does this and when he says this, Imam Hussein replies with a very sharp rebuke, says, Thaqalatka ummuka ya Hur. O Hur, may you die and may your mother grieve for you. A very sharp rebuke. And who? And to whom? To the commander of this army in front of all his soldiers. I'm sure anger would have welled up in Hur at being addressed in this manner in front of his soldiers. But yet, this is what Hur says in reply. He says, O Hussein ibn Ali, if anybody other than you had addressed me in this fashion, I know what kind of a reply I have to give to him. But your mother is Fatima, and I cannot utter a single word of disrespect for her, and therefore I have no choice but to silently swallow this. Dear brothers and sisters, look at the adab. Look at the adab. He was disobeying the Imam of his time, but he was trying to be respectful. We are leading lives of sin. We are disobeying the Imam of our time. But we can perhaps hope that if we are respectful to this holy family, perhaps we can have the same kind of fortune that Hur had. There is an argument, there is a discussion. And finally, they agree on a middle way. Imam Hussein is not willing to go to Kufa with him. And he is not willing to let him carry on to Kufa without him. Irreconcilable positions. So they come to a middle way. They said, okay, let's head off in another direction. And dear brothers and sisters, this is how they deviate from the path and the road that goes towards Kufa, and they start moving along the desert and along the river till they finally arrive at a place called Nainawa or Karbala. And dear brothers and sisters, the day that has passed today, this is the very day that history records that they were able to arrive in Karbala. They pitched their tents there. Very soon things change. From the 2nd of Muharram till the 9th of Muharram, a lot of things happen, and this isn't the time to get into them. But when we move ahead to the 9th of Muharram, what do we see? We see that there are two armies preparing for battle. On one side is the army of Hussein ibn Ali, where people are hungry and thirsty. The soldiers are tired, hungry and thirsty, but they are busy in prayer. They are busy in prayer. Their faces are shining bright, eager for the martyrdom that awaits them the next day. On the other side, we have a much larger army, well fed, well watered. They are engaged in amusement, in music and dance. They are eagerly looking forward to the next day as well, because they know that the next day they are going to slaughter the smaller army. But in this army which is dancing and enjoying itself that night and eagerly looking forward to the next day's battle, we have Hur. He is pacing up and down. His face is ashen, it has turned white. His friends, they gather around him and say, Hur, what has happened to you? We've never seen you fear and be scared of any battle. You are a brave person. What has happened to you? They are just a bunch of few tired and hungry fighters on the other side. It'll take us a couple of hours to finish them off the next day. And what does Hur say? Hur says, you don't see what I can see. I see myself suspended between heaven and hell right now. And therefore I am shaking with fear. I'm shaking with fear. Finally, Hur makes the decision. He gets onto his horse and speeds towards the other army, towards the other camp. Imam Hussein is seated in his tent. He is seated with his family members. He hears somebody calling out to him. He sends somebody out to see who it is, who comes back to say that one of the commanders of the opposing army seems to have come to us. Imam Hussein goes out to see him. It has been narrated that when Imam Hussein came out of the tent, Hur fell off the horse, or some say he threw himself off the horse onto the ground. And while addressing Imam Hussein, and while tears were streaming down his cheeks, he said, can I possibly be forgiven for the sin that I have committed? Imam Hussein alayhi salam holds him by his shoulders, asks him to get up, and says, Hur, anta hurrun fid dunya wal akhirah. You are free both in this world and in the hereafter. Hur, you are our guest. You are our guest, but we are so deeply embarrassed. You've come to us as a guest, but we don't even have a single glass of water to offer you tonight. Dear brothers and sisters, the next morning, Hur is one of the first people to go out in battle. Hur is one of the first people to go out in battle. He fights valiantly against soldiers that he was commanding till just a few hours back. He fights valiantly, but eventually he falls. As he falls, he calls out to the Imam, Imam Hussein, please accept my final salutations. Please forgive me for the tribulations that I have caused you and your family. Dear brothers and sisters, those of us who have been to Karbala, we know that the martyrs of Karbala are buried in the shrine of Imam Hussein. But have you noticed, I'm sure you would have noticed, that Janabe Hur and Hazrat Hur's shrine is a few kilometers away. Many of you would have visited that. Do you know why that is the case? Let me tell you why that happened. After the massacre of Karbala was over, after all had been slaughtered and martyred, the enemies of Islam, they gathered the bodies, the headless bodies of the martyrs, and placed them on the ground in Karbala. And they changed the horseshoes on their horses so that they could trample over these bodies with the hooves and the horseshoes of these horses. When this was being done, when preparations for this were being made, Hur's former soldiers, they raised their voice in objection and revolt. They said, no, this is an abject humiliation. We are not willing to tolerate this, that our former commander, yes, of course, he went over to the other side, but he is our former commander. We are not willing to tolerate this. So they stepped forward and they took the body of Hur and buried him at some distance. Dear brothers and sisters, this humiliation was not, the body of Hur was not subjected to this humiliation. But what about my Qasim? What about my Ali Akbar? What about Abbas? What about Hussein and all the other martyrs of the Bani Hashim? Don't they deserve this respect? Is it proper that their bodies should be trampled in this fashion on the hot sands of Karbala? سَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلِبٍ.
Jazakallah Syed. We'll have a 2-minute break now. Just a common announcement, the Malay Majlis will happen in the hall on the left hand side.